400 houses out, somewhere up off 11, Great Southern Homes.
That's probably.
I think Powell was involved in that sale.
It's right there by,
All right, I'd like to go ahead and call this meeting to order for May 5th, 2022, for the PRT Commission. I would like to ask if we go ahead and have the approval of the minutes for March 3rd, so have everybody just kind of take a look at it, make sure everything's good.
I make a motion we approve as read. Second.
All right, we have a first and a second. All those in favor? Please stand up.
Aye.
All right, excellent. Okay. Next up will be the treasurer's report, and we'll turn over to Phil.
Yes, you have, thank you, Mr. Chair. We have a treasurer's report in your packet. You can see, and I've also got it on the screen for us, a brief overview. The local aid tax side, it's showing $782,000 in the account. You can see on your printed out piece the encumbrances that we're still working on. And then there's a total available of $524,130. That's on the local side. That continues to climb in a good way for us. You can look, there's a secondary sheet that I also put in there for you that shows the month-to-month revenue on the local impact side, and you can see how we're continuing to do well. We're 33% up so far through those first 3 quarters, and we still got our 3 big months to go. So it's looking really good for us, and that's when we talk about projects in a little bit. That's why, and council's ability to do the capital millage for us, why we're able to be so project heavy right now. And so it's been really good for our infrastructure. The state ATAX side, you can see the beginning balance at the beginning of the year, the quarterly payments that's come in, and then the money that's gone out for Visit Oconee, and you can see the balances on the state side is $369,280. Any questions on that treasurer's report? And I'll talk about most of those projects when we get to the project part, if there's any questions on those.
So, quick question. I think from the last time we talked, we were talking about how many like Airbnbs and vacation rentals are now online. Do we know what that number is now?
An estimate, because it changes every month.
Right.
An estimate is probably 430. And the average daily rate that we're seeing right now is between $340 and $400 a month, depending on which month of the year. So peak summer, we're seeing $380, $309 a night average for those houses, the houses on the water. And that's inclusive of all Airbnbs, all short-term rentals.
Yeah.
And then as you get into the winter, it'll drop down to 340, 350 range on average. So,
I mean, even if those last 3 months are the same as last year, it'll be 15-20% higher than last year total revenue.
yeah, the 33% is
That's
a running
huge.
total based on the same time last year.
Yeah,
So,
and it could very well get there if they exceed
Sure.
last year. That's great.
yeah, things,
Fantastic.
the software is tremendously paying off. We just paid it for another year. It cost us $24,000 a year for that geofencing, and it just makes so much sense for, we've actually shared that with bordering counties who are in contract now, beginning contract with the same company. They can kind of see they're like, how are y'all doing all those projects over there? And so we'll have conversations with our professionals on that side of the lake, and they're looking at those same opportunities. So it's been really good for the county.
That's terrific.
Any questions on the treasurer's report?
Next up on the agenda is the fiscal year 23 supplemental ATAX budget.
Yep. So in the past, we have, I like to call it piecemeal because every meeting I will bring to you a number of things that we're doing. And as we were going through the budget process this year and projecting the revenue side, it just made sense for us to create a supplemental budget and to try to do as much with one budget as we can. And then as smaller projects come up through the year, we can bring those back at your other meetings. So you have in front of you a supplemental budget that, and you'll recognize the majority of the things on there that we do every year. I'm just, instead of doing it spread throughout the year. I'm trying to do it at one time. I'll show you the things that we've added to this from a supplemental budget because of the good news of the accommodations tax. The first one, for the first time ever, we're taking the maintenance buildings and grounds for our 3 county parks and the Lake Hartwell parks out of the general fund, and it's being paid completely by ATAX. So that's a $92,000 savings on the general fund side that we're able to now pay for with local accommodations tax. And so that's been a big thing, a big plus for us. We're also paying the second one, about 35% of our seasonal cost will now come out of ATAX. You guys are well aware of the workforce development issues that are going on and the shortages. We upped our minimal pay. We were paying $10 an hour. We went up to $13 an hour this year. And so it has helped. We've got a few more in the door. We still aren't competitive with a lot of the places around, but that has helped us tremendously in filling some of our spots. We still have an intern spot and about 4 seasonal spots that our staff would love to have, and we've got the money for that we're going to be working on. So that increase went from we were doing about 52,000 last year is what you guys helped us do. The change from $10 an hour to $13 an hour is why it went up to $78,453. So that's the reason of that increase. The Lake Hartwell parks, we started that last year doing a budget for them. Unfortunately, we've seen a lot of vandalism this year, just nonsense vandalism, going in and just busting porcelain for no reason. We've got 2 restrooms closed right now while we're having to replace those things. So I upped that just a little bit to help do some replacement stuff, so that's at $30,000. We've got 4 interns this year. I'll have a graphics communication with PRT, and then we're trying to do 1 at each park. I still have an opening at Chaw-Ram for an intern. The challenge is Chaw-Ram's a lot further away from Clemson than the other 2 parks, and so it's hard for them to commute as a college student, so we're still trying to fill that. Park programming budget, that's all the things that we do, from butterfly classes to kids classes to our wildlife habitat enhancement program. All that's included in that park programming budget. The marketing and promotions, you'll recognize the things in there, the Sports Alliance, the Waterfall brochure. I lumped all that together so that we could just have a budget that we pulled all that out of. Safety is a new line item. As I communicate with our emergency services division, and we look at the number of people who are here, who are around the waterfalls, who are around the lakes, they're getting grants to pay for radio ads and things like that, and this fits what we need to do from a safety standpoint. So we've added money in there for radio commercials about safety. You probably saw about the Lake Hartwell signage that Pickens has started. We're also picking up on that, and there'll be some signages around Lake Kiwi. Our GIS department's working on that now, so that if there's an emergency, whoever calls it in can find that number and say, I'm near dock number, whatever. We will do those signs for Kiwi, Jocassee, and Hartwell, so it's going to be a lot more for us than it is for Pickens County side. So that some of that money is built in there. We are wanting to add 2 secondary gateway signs this year. We've got the one coming in from Clemson and the one coming on Highway 11. Those are major. The secondary would be your roads like 123 from Toccoa, 28 coming in from Highlands, 107 coming in from Cashers. So we're going to start trying to do 2 a year and get new signs at those places. They won't have the rock because the smaller secondary roads, I don't have enough right-of-way to get past the breaking point to have non-breakaway stuff for DOT approval. So it'll probably be more similar to the sign, but just without the rock. But we'll work on those. And then now that we've got the 125 brown wayfinding signs around the county, some of them are breaking or getting hit more than I anticipated, so I need a little bit of money to replace those as those happen. The docent program, the increase in there is also going from $10 to $13 an hour. And then we're also adding, we have 2 positions this year. You'll see one in the local side, you'll see one on Visit Oconee side. We have an employee that's been with us for 11 years at the Oconee History Museum, and we've been paying them ATAX money, and then they've been paying that person. Well, we have pitched to council successfully, as of now, it's in the budget, to bring them on and pay them through ATAX just like we do with Visit Oconee staff. And so that, I'm showing that on your supplemental budget so you can see that total number. That is salary plus fringe, that 53 number is. So your total supplemental budget to start FY '23 is 437, 312. And I think that I put on your, okay, I took it off. So we're anticipating, on the local ATEX side, conservatively, 900 for next year. And so you see, we still got plenty of room to do our grant program, as well as other projects that may come up and any emergencies that may happen. And then we also will use some of that for some capital projects as you see some of the capital stuff that we're working on later in the presentation. So that is, I think that's easier for us to do at one time. It'll go to council one time. And then, smaller stuff, I do anticipate a couple of smaller things. We've got some playground issues that we've got to address in August. And we're going to look at about a new tractor in August. We just weren't ready to have those things as part of this budget. But this covers the majority of recurring funds that we do on a regular basis, and I'd like to start doing it as a supplemental budget one time, and then we just draw from it all year. And we don't have to do these individually. We can do this one supplemental budget, one vote, let it go to council, and then we'll just treat it like our budget throughout the year. So that's a proposal for you to consider, and I'll be glad to answer questions on any of those line items that are listed there.
Just a couple things. So like the one about the lakeside parks. So due to this vandalism, is there anything being done to try to curb this?
Good question. When we put in Seneca Creek, as we go through that process, we're putting cameras down there. We're able to put cameras down there because it's so close to the university, we're tied into the university system. While we've got that contractor on site, we're taking him to these other parks.
Yeah.
And we're gonna try to do some feasibility looking and see, do any of them qualify for cameras? Is there enough cellular service there to do some sort of camera? Even if it's just a recording, a 30-day recording, we don't have to monitor it every day. Somebody don't have to watch it. But even if it's a 30-day recording that'll go through, that we can have access to when things like that happen, we're gonna look at that. So yes, that's something we're gonna consider.
And the one about the gateway signage, so like with some of the main signage, is there going to be like any type of solar power feeding it to where even when you're driving at night, you'll be able to see the signage as well? Is it just?
We could do the floodlight. I mean, that's not a big expense at all.
Right.
We could do a floodlight because you really only want it to be lit up probably from dusk till, probably 10, 11 o'clock. And then it'll recharge the next day and do the same thing. We can do that locally without doing a whole solar panel system.
Okay.
The challenge that we saw on Highway 11 when we put it in, it was solar to begin with. That solar battery is very expensive, and it was so rural that it kept getting stolen. So we actually run power to the one at Highway 11 there at the quarter mile bridge. And so it has power run to it, and we took the solar away. We're having trouble at Chowestowee. We had a solar light that got stolen about 3 years ago, if I remember right. We put it back up, and we hung the solar batteries in the panel 25 feet in the air. Well, this past month, somebody climbed, somehow got up there, cut the cable, cut the chain, had it fall to the ground, and then stole the panel in the back.
Wow.
And so right now, we don't have a light at Chowestowee that we're working on. So, yes, we're trying to do it where we can, but it makes it hard from an ongoing maintenance in the rural locations to keep that stuff. And we're replacing it as we get to it. But like I said, we're peak summertime, and I got 2 restrooms closed at 2 of those places just because I don't have toilets and sinks in there right now. So we're working hard to figure out the lighting, the camera situation and the lighting stuff.
Is the maintenance cost, that's just your routine maintenance and
So
does that include mower repairs?
A lot of that is done through fleet maintenance.
Okay.
We have a fleet budget. So your maintenance buildings and grounds is gonna be, any repairs you do to buildings, any updates you do to buildings, whether you're replacing gutters or, there's all kind of stuff that goes in
Paint.
maintenance buildings and grounds,
Yeah.
painting, updating.
Well, and the other question with the 92 is that sufficient with the rising cost of materials?
So this is what our 3 park managers asked for. So each of them put together their own maintenance buildings and grounds budget from last year's budget, and this covers 100% of their ask. So we think right now that's a good number. It could go up next year, or I may come back to you in February next year and say, hey, I need to add $5,000 to this or whatever.
Because
We feel like that's an adequate number based on the projects we got laid out.
my initial thought was just add 8 and make it an even 100. Because it wouldn't, just, that was my thought, just looking at it.
Can always be done later though, right?
Yeah. I'm not gonna turn it down. If we do a budget, they try to forecast their projects out. We are, prices are going up. But we tried to figure some of that in as well.
I just know how it goes.
Hey, if I hear a motion in a second, we're gonna change the number.
So, since you brought up Kev, do you want to go up to?
Yeah, I'll
100,000?
make a motion that we increase the maintenance on the county park from 92 to 100,000.
Is there any real downside to that? If the money doesn't get used, it would roll over?
Well, since this is ATAX money, it's gonna be different than the regular budget in that we don't have to use it by June 30th next year.
Right.
On the ATAX side, it's continuous. It rolls. So they will only pull out as they, like, I'm not gonna take 92,000 and put it in the park side.
Right.
They'll just start coding everything to the line that we set up for Shaw Ram's maintenance buildings and grounds. And we'll track that throughout the year, and you'll have, I think his is 31,000 of that, if I remember right. Rex, maintenance buildings and grounds.
Something like
So, we'll track that as we go through the year, and that's how, we take the last 3 years' average expenditures, that's how we come up with our numbers moving forward. So no, there's not a downside, we won't lose it in this scenario.
Okay.
If it was in the general fund budget, it has to be spent by June 30th, or you do lose it. So this actually helps us from a maintenance standpoint. If it's more busy than normal, I can come back and we can add, or if it's less busy, we're not gonna lose the funds.
I'll second it.
Okay. We have a first and a second, to up it to 100,000 for that line item. If it would just make a motion on just that particular line item itself.
So you would make a motion on that change.
Yeah.
And then we will, when we vote on the whole thing, unless there's not any more, you would make a motion on the amended supplemental budget.
So it'd be like basically two. Okay. All right, so, all those in favor of the motion, to increase the county park maintenance building and grounds line item to $100,000, raise your hand. Okay, excellent. And
Any other questions on those line items? So if not, you would now ask for a motion on the supplemental budget as amended.
I would actually like to make a motion that we go ahead and accept this fiscal year 23 supplemental tax budget
As amended.
as amended.
As a minute. Yep.
Yeah.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All those in favor, raise your hand.
And that brings that new total now to 445, 312 with that change. Outstanding. I really appreciate that. I think operationally too, that's gonna help because we don't have to try to time things up to come to meetings each
Yep.
of our meetings.
Yep.
We've got it completely. Mind if I keep going?
Yo, go for it. You're on the
Right,
right.
so the next action item I have is the Visit Oconee budget. We do this every year. We have one change this year in a state requirement. Normally you are just approving the 65% fund that goes to Visit Oconee. This year, the state is also requiring us to approve the 30% money. So when we get a state ATAX check every quarter, it comes into the county. By state law, it's split into 3 different pots. 65% goes to 30% goes to Visit Oconee, and that's a predetermined organization that has ongoing tourism. And any county or government body that collects more than $50,000, I think, a year in ATAX money has to have that organization set up. That 30% goes right to it. So 65% goes into your project fund, and then the county keeps 5% for general, it just says general fund. Because mainly it's to help with the finance folks who keep up with the money. In the past, the state has not required any sort of, approval on the 30% money. It's just, it comes to the county, a check comes in, $100,000 comes in, 30,000 immediately goes to Visit Oconee. And we turn in the report every year of how much goes, but they've never asked for an accounting of it. This year, they're asking for a pre-approval so that they see what you're spending the money on, and then you have to turn in the reports at the end of the year to show what that money is being spent on. So you have two things that will require two motions. The first one is the state ATAX 65% fund, and I've got this to show you. You can see the expenses for the Visit Oconee side, how we've got them split into two different categories. And you can see that we use the state ATAX money to completely pay for our staffing. So state ATAX completely pays for the 4 positions. It was 3, and this year we're adding we have an 8-year veteran at Visit Oconee that we've done the same thing that I talked about with the History Museum. And we've been paying them a lump sum of money. They've been paying our employee over there. Well, we're at a point now where I want to bring them in. They'll get county benefits just like all of our other employees, and they'll be completely paid. Salary plus fringe will come out of ATAX. So that $289,761 covers 3 full-time positions with benefits, and then because we moved to Main Street, we just hired a person to help with the front office side, the staffing side, walking in the door. We will continue to pay them because it's a brand new spot. We will make sure that works. We'll continue to pay them a lump sum, and they'll pay that person. And if it works well next year, we'll look at bringing them in. So it was kind of a trial to do that with. Marketing and advertising, you can see, and I do have, I believe I printed you off in your packet a breakdown so that you can kind of see. I broke it down just a little bit more on the digital media and the advertising and marketing side, so you can see kind of what we do from what platforms we hit. You'll notice that the expenses and the revenue you're not approving everything. So on the green side, you'll see other funding. So there's other funding that goes into Visit Oconee other than the ATAX. What you guys are responsible for approving from a recommendation to council is the state ATAX side. Because state ATAX has been so good, we're not using any local ATAX this year for Visit Oconee. It's just the state side. Local ATAX is staying on the project side. So that fluctuates each year based on the number that comes in. We have a target budget we try to get to every year to cover staffing and marketing and advertising. And now we've added operations because we're on Main Street, so we've got rent and a few other things that are added into that number. So the first motion would be the 65% state aid tax recommendation of $289,761 to cover 3 full-time employees plus a front office employee to be paid through Visit Oconee.
What happens if there's a surplus, so the state aid tax comes in, the 30% comes in above that 120?
So we project an estimate every year. It has been a surplus the last couple of years.
Okay.
That surplus goes to Visit Oconee.
Okay.
We've been able to do a couple of projects with that money that, typically we wouldn't have been able to do. So it continues to go there.
Gotcha.
So I do the same thing with it as I do with a regular budget. I go back the last 3 years and I look at what has come in, and we try to take an average of that. 120 is conservative. I really think there'll be about a $15,000 or $20,000 surplus on that. But I don't want to go so high that we're short ourselves.
Right.
So I take a 3-year average. It's right at 120. This year we're on about the 140 range. We're waiting on the fourth quarter to come in. Once it comes in, we'll know. But I think we're going to be about 20,000 over. But yeah, that money it goes through there each quarter check that comes in. We don't lose it.
So can you give a little more detail as how that breaks? Let's say we have a $10,000 overage. I mean, is that something, if we're approving it this way now, because I don't recall us doing it exactly like we have.
Yeah, well,
In the
we've never
past.
had to approve the 30%.
Yeah.
This is the first year.
So if there is that overage, is that coming back to us to approve how we spend that overage? How does that typically work?
The state will probably dictate how that's gonna work, because we have to project, we're projecting what we think is gonna happen. Come third and fourth quarter next year, actually it'll be first and second quarter of next year, it'll be third and fourth of our budget. I may be coming back saying we're anticipating this, to be an overage, and we may have to get you to approve that as well, so that we've got approval for all of the money.
Gotcha.
And typically when that happens, we have our set platforms that we advertise through that we know work. But we also have a list over here, kind of like a wait list. Here, here's some things that we would do if we had extra money. We just start pulling those over if we have overage and give those trial runs. And, we're research based. You've heard me talk before. If an ad doesn't work, we don't get leads off of it, we don't do it.
Well, I guess what made me think of it is, let's say we are over that 10. I know we've had requests from Discover Upcountry before for grants.
Right.
And I didn't know if that kind of that overages could take place of the grant request, so we could do it and, to other organizations more local.
Not on the state side.
Okay,
All that's coming out of the local side.
gotcha.
But we could increase projects, so a project load. So you'll notice when I said the treasurer's report, well, we had 329, I believe, in the state side. 369, and we're only using 289 this year out of that 65%. So the state is going to say, you gotta spend that money. Well, I know that I'm gonna have a change order for Seneca Creek coming up, and so we're gonna supplement on the state side towards some capital project stuff. And then we also have, when I get to the project stuff, you'll see my layout for 23. I'm gonna put those into some of those capital projects so that we make sure we get it all spent. It's a good problem to have right now.
Absolutely.
Any other questions by anybody? All right, so, I say we'll go ahead and make a motion to accept the recommendations for the 65% state A-tax fund of the 289,761.
I'll second.
Any other discussion? All those in favor, raise your hand. Okay. Item 4.2.
And just as we've been talking, this is the first year we're doing the 120. That's an estimated number for the state 30% fund. And when you make the motion, whoever makes the motion, if you would just make it that it'll be spent as laid out with the digital media, advertising, marketing, and visitor center operations. Because we have to report that now up front, what we're spending it on.
I'd like to make a motion that we approve the 30% state A-tax fund, $120,000 estimate to be broken down into digital media, advertising and marketing, and visitor center operations.
I second it. All right, all those in favor, raise your hand. All right, excellent.
Okay, if you don't, I'll just go into projects, if that's okay.
Yeah. Yep.
So I'll just give you a quick rundown. This is the things that have happened this year. A couple of them are still ongoing, but there's a big list. And I won't go into detail for each one of them. I got two of them that I'll kind of give you an update on. But you can see, we've got it spread out pretty much across the board at a number of different places. And when you look at these projects, some of them are smaller, a couple $1,000 projects. Some of them are $150,000 to $200,000 projects. So we've been able to accomplish a lot this year on this list. Any questions on any of those projects? I'm not going to go in detail on any of those. I am going to go in detail on Seneca Creek and Southfield Rec Building next.
Just a quick comment. I had a chance to go to Power Ram a few weeks ago back, and the rec building deck replacement and the boardwalk to the Shelter One looked phenomenal. It was a fantastic job that was done there.
The staff did the back deck,
Yeah.
and then we contracted for the boardwalk
Okay.
with Swingo Things, which is actually located on 76 right outside the park.
Yeah.
So. with no questions, I'll show you, this is the updated look at South Cove Rec Building. We're hoping it's completed by the end of this month. You can see if you remember it, it was the old T80 siding with plywood windows. So now we've got windows in it, and if you look on the bottom left picture, that window opens half, so it slides. So you can still slide all those windows open and have the airflow through there. The back deck, we used a Trek product, so I'm not gonna have to worry about it again. We upped the load for that, for a commercial base load, and the railing is on its way, should be here this week. And this picture was yesterday, so we got to finish the siding on the back. You can see the detail on the inside. We added HVAC. There's 4 HVAC units, 1 in each corner. Audio and visual goes in next week, and we should be able to have that open by the end of this month or the first week of June. June 7th, I believe, is the first rental. So we're really close to that. We're painting it. It'll be the same color as the office, so it'll match the office over there once we're done. And the floors will be stripped and redone, but that's probably gonna be after summer camp. So, we got a bunch of kids in there all summer, so we're gonna wait till after
Tear
summer
it up first.
before we do that. So that's kind of an update on South Cove. And you know, we've done three different approvals for that. It's gonna be about $225,000 is what we've invested in to up that building. And
What's the size of that building? You know?
Well,
30 by 80.
that sounds about right.
2,400 square feet.
Yeah. And so we're ordering the tables and chairs now. So we're doing the round lifetime tables and the lifetime chairs. So we're taking the picnic tables out and doing a little more formal round table and chair. So we can remove those easy. We got carts for them. So if somebody wants it open, we can have it open. If somebody, only needs 25 or 30 chairs. And then we bought enough chairs to put across the back deck too. So if somebody rents it out, you could have 5 or 6 tables across that back deck as well.
Is there gonna be the bench still running?
The bench is still in there. You can see it on the bottom left.
Yeah.
But we did cover it. It used to be open underneath the bench, and we covered that and run electrical all through it.
What's it cost to rent that?
It's only cost $150 a day after the new budget.
Oh, it's going up to.
It's gonna go up to $150. That's in the new budget. It's $100 a day.
That's still a great
not
deal.
bad.
It's a great deal.
And that's for all day.
That's all day.
Great location, easy access, beautiful view. I mean, that's a great project.
The railing, is it iron?
It's an iron railing, that's vertical,
Yep.
with a top rail.
And you said audiovisual, so like white screen and all that,
So
like in the
we
presentations.
got a drop-down screen. You can see the can lights in the bottom left picture. So there's 50 can lights throughout the building. And then speakers also run. There are ceiling fans down the middle. And audio-visual will be on the front with an HDMI connection up front, and I think also in the back.
Okay.
So depending on how you got it set up.
Is there gonna be a serving day?
So do we get a field trip?
Yeah. Mandy just asked a good question. Across the back, the bottom right picture, that's actually the end of the building. That's the end of the building on the left. That's to the left of that closet. We're building a serving table that will sit right there on wheels. And so if somebody has food or catering or whatnot, the whole end of that building will be a big serving table with plug-ins for warmers and whatnot. So caterers can come in and set up. So I'm trying to get it, as much as we can, ready to, to turnkey use. So that's been a really good project. Besides, everything so far, everything has been county labor. Our facilities and maintenance guys built the back deck. Our South Cove staff has handled all the trim and stuff inside and the siding. We contracted out the new roof, and then facilities is gonna paint it. So it's been a completely in-house project. So we've got some talented staff.
That saved a lot of money.
It
Yeah.
has saved a lot of
Yes.
money. Yeah, we wouldn't have been able to do it for $225 otherwise. Any questions on that?
Is there on the top left in the very back, is that a ramp?
So that is a handicap ramp being built. So you'll have stairs on this side, And then the far one next to the stage is a handicap ramp that comes down and connects to our sidewalk that runs by the playground.
Okay.
Yeah. And it'll have the same Trek flooring as the deck. All right. Seneca Creek, this was yesterday. Cutting and grubbing is done and grading has started. So if you drive by there now, it's all open and you'll really start to see some movement. Probably over the next 30 to 45 days, you'll see curb and gutter go in as they get to grade. And, start seeing some things happen. We're still looking at a December completion. We can't start the lakefront site work until after the fish spawn break. So I think that's July 1 when we can get back to disturbing the shoreline. So they'll start driving the pilings for all of our docks in July. And you've got the 2 courtesy docks, the fishing pier, and the kayak launch. All will be input after July 1. The change order that'll come back, and it will probably go straight to council because they've already been told and anticipated it, will be the restroom. So we're using a CXT restroom, which is a concrete restroom, a little less, is more vandalism proof than what we could build. But we're connecting to university sewer and water.
Okay.
So it's not gonna be a vault unit, it'll be connected. And then we're adding a storage unit on the back of that, so it'll have a chase between the 2 restrooms and then about a 10 by 20 storage room on the back that we can use for our Lake Hartwell guys traveling around to those to store all their cleaning supplies. So we'll shelve it out and do cleaning supplies for them. Cause they're driving they're filling their truck up at High Falls every morning and leaving from there. This will give them a place that they don't have to call home, but if they need to store stuff, that's one of their stops along the way. They don't have to fill their truck up on a different location. So it's coming along well, and I'm looking forward to seeing that take shape. What's to come? This is what's on next year's list. We've got a new maintenance building at Shaw Ram that'll be the capital millage money for next year. We've got, if you're familiar with Shaw Ram, there used to be an old set of swings right next to the rec building. They were no longer safe. And there used to be a slide that was 30 feet tall. But we've taken all that out, and we're going to design a little natural play area and use that slope, maybe put a slide into that hill, use some natural boulders for climbing stuff. So that'll be in next year's budget. We also are going to start the Chaw Ram master plan, which will be a public process in the late fall. At High Falls, the point shelter closest to the new development is being replaced. We're looking at that now. It'll follow the same architectural design as what we've been doing. It'll have some rock columns leading up to the post. It'll be open air, and then on the very point, we're gonna do a walkway out and do a gazebo for weddings. We're getting a lot of requests for weddings now, and that gives them and when there's not a wedding, it'll have hooks that you hang a swing at. So we'll have a swing to use in regular use, so when there's a wedding, we'll remove that, and it'll be an arbor for a wedding. They're gonna rebuild their back deck this year. And we're actually gonna do something a little different there. We're gonna tie into the roof and actually cover their roof. And it's not gonna be as big as South Cove, but it'll come out and it'll be a covered space. It'll be our first covered space, but it was pretty cool that we sat down with their staff and they wanted to cover it. High Falls master plan will be part of the master plan process for both. The South Cove Beach project, I met with the architect yesterday, and we have a lot of problem with water sheeting off of the parking lot that's sloped at South Cove, and it just takes all the sand off of the beach. So we're gonna build a sidewalk and some basins and catch that water and move it around. And so we're looking at building some retaining walls to cover that and to add some sidewalks there. So we'll be able to cover that, and that'll be an enhancement project there. South Cove parking for tennis and pickleball. I've got about 50 cars parking there 4 or 5 days a week, and the space is designed for 10. So right now they're parking all over our green space, and we've got our engineer working on a couple of layout options for us to address. I don't know if I'll get to the physical part of it this year, but we'll have the engineering done and be ready for construction as money's available. Seneca Creek will be done in December. We talked about the camera feasibility for all those parks coming up. And then as soon as I get the shoreline fixed at South Union, I need Lake Hartwell to go down a little bit. It's been at full pool or above for a long time. And I've got to get it to go down so that we can go in and recreate the shoreline at South Union. The waves have just tore it up. And so once I get that done, we've got a permit in to do a courtesy dock there as well. So we'll add a courtesy dock at South Union. A lot of fishermen use that to go up to the loop on Lake Hartwell. So that's what's on tap for this year. It's a lot. But I think we'll get the majority of this either accomplished or engineered and ready to go for the next year. Any questions on any of those? Super excited when I sit down with staff nowadays and you have the resources to be able to knock some of these out. We challenged with that for a long time, so. That's all of my projects. This is our upcoming meetings, and a reminder that the deadline for the fall ATAX grants is August 15th, and then that's your other 3 meetings for the rest of the year. So with that, Mr. Chair, I have nothing else from the staff. I'm glad to answer any questions you guys may have.
I think from the last time when we had a meeting to usher in the amounts of what we're gonna provide, you know, for those entities that applied for the money, that they think we kept it at 60,000 the last time. Is that gonna go up again for this next round possibly? Yeah.
We used to give out 20,000 a time, and we gave out 60,000. So it all depends on. I try to look at each quarter when we do each grant cycle. I try to look at what we've got in there, and as long as ATAX grows, I want to pass along some of that growth and opportunity over to the grant side as well. So as we've been able to improve our internal projects, we've also been able to improve the grant side for our partners, our industry partners. So it may go down to 40 one time, it may jump up to 60 one time. If it's really good, it may jump up to 70 one time. I can't answer that question until you see how the money comes in each year.
Okay.
But I don't anticipate us, doing a deep dive, because we've tried to set it up to where, we got a lot of requests coming in. We want to be able to help as much as we can on the grant side. 60 was the most we've ever been able to give out. But you still had 100, and if I remember, had 114 or 15 of eligible projects. So you still had to make a bunch of cuts. But I anticipate that staying close to that number, and then if ATAX continues to climb, it may jump a little bit more. There may be times where we drop it back down to 40 or 50, depending on where we are in the year and how much money we got. But we're hitting 110, 120,000 a year now in grants, and that's, for a county our size, it's pretty impressive.
And do you have a tally of how many, grant applications have been submitted so far for this new date, or nothing as of yet?
No, we won't.
Won't see anything
They're
till
due the 15th. She'll start getting on the morning.
probably a month before.
Down.
Yeah.
No, we have some that'll come in early, but a lot of them are that last couple days before the deadline.
And one more question. So this might not be related per se, but this is just kind of more of an informational question I have for you. So I know I've been watching videos lately about obviously the new budget's being worked out by council, and discussion about the recreation departments and the funding. Could you kind of give a layout explanation about that money that's given to the recs
Sure.
and the rotation on it?
So when I started with the county in 2005, I came from the city, and the county supplies a supplemental number to each rec department to help with the kids they serve outside the city limits. So each of the 5 recreation departments have a district they serve. Well, kids that live outside the city limits of Walhalla, for example, still play for Walhalla. Well, you have the county that is trying to supplement money to help with those kids who are playing, because we don't do youth sports. So the whole purpose behind that is to help supplement the city for their offerings. And there's a whole list of what that money can be used for. It can be used for operations, it can be used for uniforms, for officials, or for capital. I don't think I've turned anything down. As long as it's dealing with youth sports, that's what the money is designated for. But we're not going to tell them how to use it. We just give them a list of here's what's available, and then they tell us what they need, and we approve it. So it was They were getting about 10,000 a year. We created a $5,000 rotating, back in 2007 or 8, that you got 10,000 a year, and then every fifth year you would get 15, and you would be able to do something with capital.
Yeah.
There was, probably 2017 or 18, that jumped to $30,000 per district that we give out. And there's a request this year for it to go up to $50,000 per district. And so, you know, they're able to take that, for example, I'll use Westminster just because I read his the other day. They're doing lighting, they're upgrading their lighting on their ball fields. You know, things that they may not have had the money to do, this money is able to help on the capital side, or put up fencing for a new park. Seneca took theirs and expanded two of the fields so that they could host bigger tournaments. We've done scoreboards, we've done lighting, we've done flooring for gyms, we've done uniforms, officials,
Trophies.
liability insurance to be able to do that kind of stuff. I mean, all that is covered under there. But there's a need, when you talk to each of those 5 districts, there's a need for additional funding. And so council is considering raising from 30 to 50. So that's what you're hearing the discussions on.
Okay. And all that's through general fund as far as?
All that's through the general
All general
fund.
fund, okay.
It comes through my budget.
Yeah.
But each rec department director sends in a written request. We make sure it applies and it's going to youth sports. And then Mandy does a voucher and gets some money. Some of them gets it all at one time if it's a big project. Some of them may get it 2 or 3 times during the year as they need it.
So in essence, depending on how that vote goes, whether it goes from 30 to 50.
Yeah,
you're
right. They, you know, the first reading passed and 50 was in there, but they're still discussing some things. So until they get the third and final reading, you know, a lot of that is still being discussed.
Okay. And then they can still apply for ATAX grant funding, you know, like we have, for example, Apple Festival and.
Oh, yeah.
You know, they can still.
Yeah, because that recreation funding is for youth sports, not for festivals or events.
Okay,
Yeah, 2 different pots.
all right. Do we have any other questions? Yeah, I believe if that's it, then I make a motion we adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor? All right, let's do it.